What's going on, Illumineers, and welcome back to the Madhouse. And this video, as you can tell, is straight from the Southside Gaming 97 person 8-case free tournament that was put on this past weekend. The whole event was streamed. The guys that took it all the way to the top, they were playing for like 12 hours, and they brought us 8 phenomenal decks in Top Cut. And I'll just say right now, the meta is all over the place. You guys are gonna, if you didn't watch the stream, if you haven't seen what happened, the decks are crazy right now. If you thought the meta was solved, it definitely isn't. We might know what those top tier 1 decks are, but what they're playing, what they're teching, it's all over the place. And you will really see that as we get into this. But before we do, I want to shout out Matified really quick. If you don't know who they are, they're on Twitter. They made these awesome mats. They got the finalist mats and they got the championship mat. These are foiled, and he made these for Southside Gaming, worked with them, got these made. So they got these awesome mats as well as those cases. So shout out to Matified. Shout out again to Southside for just even putting this thing together. Just absolutely phenomenal. And let's jump into it. So first up, we have our winner. We have Casey taking home 3 cases, a Let It Go DLC card, the top 128 card, the Let It Go champion mat, and with this list. And when you look at this list, it is exactly what I was just talking about. A little bit of everywhere. When we look at it, we see 3 Chernobyls and 3 Brooms. So right off the bat, we're just like, what is this? Like, who doesn't run 4 Chernobyls? Maybe they don't run 4 Brooms because they run Diablos, but no one is talking about Moana. And if you guys remember, way back in my spoiler videos, I did Moana, and I gave her a 4 out of 5 because I talked about how strong this Moana into Flynn Rider start could be. And I don't remember off the top of my head if we ever saw that start, but that Moana into Flynn Rider can just be so strong, and it's just questing for 3, and anything you trade into it is most likely a trade. So it's just questing for 1, and then meanwhile, Flynn Rider, if you're on the play, you're almost guaranteed to get 3 lore. So it's just that awesome right off the bat, go crazy. And in game 1 and 2 of that match, Flynn Rider got Casey like 12 lore or something. Like, it was insane and just really crazy start. Normal package right here with the foxes and the snakes. Only 2 crabs, which is something that some lists have cut completely. Some are like, we need 4. It's, again, all over the place. You never know what to expect. But we see, of course, I think it's $30 now, Genie coming in here, and then the rabbits. But then we see some more interesting stuff because we have the 1 Elsa, the 1 Big Sisu, and then we have 3 Brawls and 3 B-Preps. And this is really interesting because when we talk about the Genie Wars, like, Red Purple has one of the best ways to deal with Genie and Brawl. And meanwhile, Casey's like, you know what? I'm going to show up with 3. Like, who needs 4 Brawls when Genie is a card? And Casey said, I don't. I'm fine with 3. I'm going to do great with 3. And he did. He took away the victory. I believe he ended up with 1 loss in Swiss and made it to Top Cut, and then took away the win against Red Blue. But he's got the 4 ladies, right, which is just a phenomenal card still. That 2 and 2 there just does great things. But yeah, just a really cool list. The numbers are wacky. That 3-3-2 there, and only 3 brawls, but he managed to pilot this thing to victory, and it was a really great game. I encourage you to go watch the live stream. I'll link that in the description just to see him pilot Red Purple. Don't pay attention to the inking. Don't pay attention to any of that madness. Just watch the match itself. Watch some of the lines he takes, because we do get the opportunity to kind of see his hand a little bit, so you can see where he goes with that as well. But really awesome job, way to take it home and do great things, showing us that Red Purple, as much as they want to complain and talk about how it's dead, it's now come and won the EU Continentals. It's now come and won Southside Gaming's event, and it may have had the worst conversion rate of the entire event. I believe there were 28 red purple lists that showed up and only one of them made top cut, but it was enough to take the win. Okay, when we see red blue being the powerhouse that it is, and we know there's going to be a lot of them, it makes a really good window for red purple to come in and just say, you know what, I'm just going to beat you to the ground. But with that, let's talk about red blue, because in second place we had Joey bringing it home with red blue, taking home 2 cases and one of those mattified let it go mats. And what do you notice right away? There is no lucky dime here, no lucky dime. And instead we're going really big on those Maui half sharks and just going off with our actions. You see the 2 pirates life, like, I mean, we're just going hard. If we can get a Maui half shark down, then we can just do these crazy things. And instead of winning with dime and crab or whatever it may be, we are going to get Maui half shark down, accumulate all that lore. Meanwhile, we're just slowly questing away with dragons and big sizus and crabs. And even when you look at the crab, though, there's only 2 of them here. Again, not 3, not 4, just 2 crabs, and taking the win, going all the way to second place with this list. You're just, still running the ice blocks, which is a really big conversation right now of red blue just feels like they have too many uninkables, so they're talking about cutting the ice blocks. And also the Lady Medusas, which you see in this list, there's no Lady Medusas, but he still opts to have the ice blocks. And you see ice block do a lot of work in the games that Joey is streamed with the baby Sizu, with the big Sizu, just doing great things. It keeps the Maui half shark alive longer because now it can challenge into things after you've ice blocked the opponent. But also with the Maui half shark, we're running 3 Vitalispheres. So the odds of you being able to see a Vitalisphere by the turn you play half shark are really, really good. So now you're just in this great place to be able to answer anything. They play a genie, you don't care, because earlier you played a Vitalisphere and now you crash into it with your Maui half shark. Your Maui half shark only takes 2 damage. Look at that. I have a popsicle, so I heal him back to full anyways. And meanwhile, I'll bring back a really cool action card because I can, and I'll cast it next turn to get 1 lore. And the cycle begins. So he opts to cut the dime because the dime, it's just another uninkable. It's a slower card and it just does big things with that. Now, meanwhile, keep in mind, he lost in the finals against red purple, and the dime is one of the most important cards for the red purple match, because if red blue can get a dime down, red purple now is in a race, right? Because that means every single turn now they're getting some sort of lore, and you're hoping that it's not going to be the big shiny Tamatoa, and they're just going to get onesies, twosies here and there, but it still presents a race that has to be handled. So here we're just opting going a different route, and I'd be interested to see how Joey felt about that. And is this something that we're going to see a lot of the NA Continentals, the LCQs, where they just don't go with the lucky dime? You don't have to worry about the enemy hideawaying your lucky dime anymore because you just don't play one, and you're just digging, you're just doing these great things with actions. Really neat list. I hate to see it, but I love to see it at the same time. And just really, really impressive and really good job taking home that second place. Moving on, though, we have a blurple list with Jack taking 3rd place. And I believe of the 97 people that showed up at the event, only 2 of them had blurple, and 1 of them made top cut, going all the way to 3rd place. And when you look at this list, it's very, the first thing I immediately messaged JDRR because I was like, hey man, that core of your list, it's doing great things. And when we look at it, it's what you expect to see in blurple. None of this fancy, strange, like Cogsworth 2/5 ward resist +1s, none of the strange Alice's. This is just a list that is extremely consistent. You've got 10 1-drops, so now you play a 1-drop and then you can sail on turn 2, and you at the same time play another 1-drop that's just replenishing your hand. and you just start going. And then next thing you know, on turn 3, you're playing a genie. So now you're questing for 2. You're already ahead in the genie wars. And because now they play a genie on their turn 4, so your turn 4, you already have a genie down, so you can play an Elsa to exert their genie and then hit their genie with your genie. And it's already like, what are they going to do at this point? Because now you can go into a bell, you could bounce your genie if you really wanted to. Like, there's all these different things that you can now do, and it just gets so crazy. Blurple, once it gets going, it's going to go really well, and I expect to see so much Blurple DLC queues if people are putting in the work. And the thing to keep, we'll talk about this a lot in an upcoming video I'm going to do, but this is not an easy deck to pilot because it is through and through a purple deck with some blue ramp. And sure, we have Hades, and we'll get to that in another video, but you have to be a skillful purple player to play this deck, because one mistake and you will get punished like no other because you can't be prep. So just a really good list. We see the 6 between the 3 Hades and the 3 Elsa, so the high cost on inkables is a little high, but again, if you can just ramp to those, you can control pretty much anything and Elsa lock them out. And that's actually how he won to get to top 4, is he also locked down a Steel Song player that we're going to look at in a little bit. And just a great list, doing awesome things, and really good job bringing it. Blurple a 3rd place win, man. We have an aggro song list coming up. This is an aggro doc song list. If you're in the 20 lore page, you may have seen it there. This is something that was a list that I think is an exact copy of something that was posted in 20 lore. Joey something or another, McGolf, something like that. But let's talk about the list. This is just a aggro list where I'm going to play characters, I'm going to quest, I'm going to refill my hand with Doc. Oh, look, you were forced to trade, so now I get to trade into you and get a Rapunzel heal. You've got the 3 Spins, which is just an absolute powerhouse. This is one of the cards that makes aggro song so extremely powerful, because you can play that Piglet on turn 2, then quest on turn 3, and then if it's still alive, you can quest again on 4 and then play a Spin to ready it. Or even cooler, you can quest on 4 with Lawrence, and then you can ready it with Spin, and then you can use Lawrence to sing Strength, and that is really cool. Or you could challenge with Lawrence, and then like there's just so many things that Spin enables. Just a really great aggro list. He's running 3 Mickeys. It's just a sticky card that's going to quest. Again, we've kind of talked about my viewpoint on that extra 1 drop, but that Mickey's just staying around, questing, doing his thing, having a good old time. The 4 Lawrence's 2 Plutos, just a card that's annoying for an opponent to deal with. The Blues just offer really good reach, and then the Kitas, again, just a great top deck 5 drop that most likely will get to quest for 2, but also protects the rest of your board to do their thing. So a really cool aggro song list. Again, this is how I think aggro song should be built, in this direction. But really happy to see this. Made top 8, did phenomenal things. Really good job, man. Really glad and happy that you were able to do so well. Next up, we have a purple steel list coming in. And when we look at this purple steel list, this is what we expect to see when we see a purple steel list. We expect to see this tempo-esque, like, I'm just going to play characters, control the board, do great things, and completely dominate and do amazing purple steel things. And we're seeing this deck pop off and do those amazing purple steel things. We saw it do really well at the EU Continentals. We saw it do really well at this event right here, where it got 2 top 8 finishes. And with those top 8 finishes, both are very different, so we'll get there. But looking at this list, again, we have the 10 1-drop, so you're almost guaranteed a 1-drop. The 3 Calhouns, because Calhoun is just such a powerhouse card, and purple has always kind of struggled with a 2-drop, so now you have the Calhouns and the Smees to really help in that ballpark. 3 Crabs, only 2 Petes, and I'd imagine that a lot of people really, had bad opinions about this because they look at a lot of other lists and they auto run for Pete's, and they get on this idea that all you have to do to win is just Pete bounce, and that's how you beat Steel Song, that's how you beat Red Blue, and you just play a Pete and then you bounce it and you play another Pete and you just win that way. Newsflash, that's what they want you to do because you'll lose. But sidetracked, only 2 Pete's, and I'm sure a lot of people don't agree with that, but good. I like it. I'm cool with it. I'm sure you had a reason for doing it. 2 Tinkerbells, just a bigger card that you can hopefully cast, and then if the game is going to this point, if you're not so far behind, Tinkerbell helps you control that board really well. We see the bells to help with the Genie Wars that you will have. We see the 2 Fire the Cannons, just an excellent 1-cost card to really mess with Steel Song in particular, to get rid of those shift lines. A lot of these blue Steel Alice builds, you can mess with them with Fire the Cannons to maybe hit their Smee and kill that or banish it early, things like that. We see the 1 Zeus, which is just, it banishes a lot, right? It's a one way to deal with the Genie War because you can just exert your Genie to sing Zeus on their Genie. You can use it to take out a Maui Half Shark very easily. A lot of different things you can do with that. And then, of course, the 3 Strength that will help you deal with that as well. So you can sing that on turn 3, with, like, let's say with your Pete. Their Half Shark's not down at that point, but you could use Pete, right? So they can't do anything with Half Shark yet. And then you sing Strength of Raging Fire and then maybe hard cast the Fire the Cannons to take out that, as long as you have 3 other characters. So just a good tempo beat down purple steel list that's just doing nasty purple steel things where I'm going to play a card every turn. You have to answer it. A lot of my, like, questing for 2, gaining a lore, questing for 2, gaining a whole bunch of lore through goat stuff, 2. So all of your cards are just legitimate targets and problems that your opponent has to deal with. Next up, we have more of a traditional Steel Song list, and I say traditional because it's running Zeus, and anymore I feel like Zeus is that, like, the traditional, Steel Song, because when we look at this list, it's doing something very reminiscent of what we saw, I believe, at the EU Continentals, the 1 Steel Song that made top 16. I think, I could be way off, but was doing the Robin Hood and Gaston. So he was running the Robin Hood shift line and then also playing the Gastons. And this, again, it's just something that if you're not playing green, you guarantee a whole new world on turn 4. Like, there's very little that any deck can deal with, and there's very little any deck can do to stop that. You could play Gaston to sing Zeus, like, on turn 4. Like, Gaston is just a really good card, and we saw it do really well outside of the shift line version. So let's try it in the shift line version, and we're seeing good things with it. Like, he made top 8 with it. And we see the 2 Gantus that coming in just questing for 4, another card that's hard to deal with, especially where Red Blue is cutting ice blocks. And that might not happen. It's just something they're playing with right now. But when Red Blue is running ice blocks and their biggest enemy is themselves bricking, which we saw in the final game, literally the last game of the entire tournament, we saw Red Blue just brick really hard, and I think it was turn 3 or 4. So if they cut ice blocks, then Gantu can come in and he's relatively safe. Like, there's not a lot that anyone can do to stop a Gantu from questing. So that is a really good option there. You have your Plutos that are just being annoying, offering a really good opportunity for your your Rapunzel. Then, of course, we have our 4x4 with the Zeus and the Ursula. You play that Ursula on 2, and now you can deal 5 damage to pretty much anything you want. And that is really good. Now, one thing that I found extremely interesting about this list, though, is look how many Robin Hoods there are. There's only 3 Robin Hoods. So he's running 3 of the baby Robin Hood and 4 of the big Robin Hood. So your mulligan gets a little interesting now, because with only 3, normally when I do a mulligan, if I have a big Robin Hood, then I'm going to mulligan to try and get that little one. And I'm curious how he would do that mulligan, if he'd still go the same route or go another direction. But a great list. He's trying to go really hard with these 4 daisies. Just if he does end up against a red blue, he can try and just play those out and then go, Lilo or go Smee and then Gaston into a whole new world and hopefully into a Pete, or even a Pluto would be great. So you can then, if you have the Pluto, you can stop their Maui from taking out your board. So just a lot of good options, a really good list, and excited that he was able to do so well with it. I'm really liking seeing this Robin Hood shift line with the Gastons. I think it's pretty neat, and what it guarantees you with that whole new world, where you can keep a really strong opening hand as long as it looks really good. Or as long as you have the mulligan cards, as long as you have the 1, 2, 3 whole new world, like that's a hand you can keep as long as the other cards are inkable. And so I think it's a sexy list. I really like it. So really good showing, man. So next up, we have another red-blue list. I believe this is Jonathan's list. And when we look at this list, this is another list that when these red-blue, one of the things that red-blue is trying to figure out is how can I do really well into these aggro matchups, but how can I also do really well into the mirror? And because normally if you want to do really well into one, you have to sacrifice the other. And so we see Jonathan here. He's running these 2 Queen of Hearts that is really good into this aggro stuff. It really helps against maybe some daisies because now they can't deal with your Queen of Hearts. So it helps with the daisies. It helps with if they play a shift line and think it's safe to quest, or they quest with that Cindy, talking about Steel Song here, or even DeCandio Mines, right? The Mine Song version. So Queen of Hearts coming in doing great things. We see 3 ice blocks again. So of course we see the 3 baby Sizus. That opens up the shift line to the big Sizus. Here we only see the 2 half sharks and the 1 pirate's life. So when we look at this list, we're seeing a lot of this Sailor-esque type list that he first posted at the beginning of the set, where let's run Maui half sharks and then just run a lot of 1-ofs. And all we got to do is dig for it 1 time, and then Maui half shark allows us to bring it back. So we see the 2 Vitalospheres. One thing to note is 3 big Sizus, 2 B preps. So we don't have a lot of, this list doesn't have a whole lot of just remove the entire board, but with 3 ice blocks and 2 Madame Medusas and 3 Maleficent Dragons, he has a lot of instant removal at his fingertips, at his disposal. And so he's able to do that kind of stuff where he's able to ice block things, pretty much anything down to where he could brawl it, he can Lady Medusa it. Maleficent Dragon doesn't need ice blocks, it just takes it out. And of course, he's got the 1 Let It Go also, where he can use that. So not as much big board removal, but a lot of single removal, just trying to get to that point where you can get your crabs going, get your lucky dime, you have your pirate's life and Maui half shark doing their things. And just, again, it's a list that is more reminiscent of what we saw at the beginning of the set, still running, the crabs and the lucky dime, but a great list. Great Stone Dragon, I still think is strange. I think it's just too slow for this meta, but I'm not a red-blue player by any means, but it's not one that you see a whole lot of anymore because the meta is just so fast. And if you're using that turn to play Great Stone Dragon, then you have to have the Queen of Hearts. You have to have things that are already discarded. Otherwise, it's just ink. And I don't know. It feels a little weird. Do you have the time as a red-blue player to actually use that? Where you're playing Queen of Hearts, the opportunity is there that you'll have targets, but do you have the time as a red-blue player? I'd be curious how many times Jonathan has actually played the Great Stone Dragon versus having to just ink it. But awesome job, man. Really great showing. Especially you just did the CCS event and then you came and did this one, and you're doing great things, man. I hope we see you at the LCQs as well. But next up, this is the last list that we're sharing. This is a purple steel Jafar list. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't seen Jafar for a hot minute in this because let's be honest, I don't since I've been playing, Jafar's never been a top tier deck. It's never been a deck really in any conversation whatsoever, because it's just the moment you see this Jafar, like, or this Jafar, you have a really good idea of what you're playing, especially if they inked a purple card at some point. Like, you already know what's up. So you already know what to prepare for. You already know, okay, I need to remove those Jafars. I can't let him shift, because they don't, like, if he shifts and sings Whole New World, that's 7 lore. If he has one of these other shift lines down, the Robin Hood or the Jim Hawkins, and he draws into another Whole New World, that's 14 lore in one turn. Like, oh my goodness. Like, the deck can be so nasty. And when what it does with the blue fairies drawing you cards, we have the Bayou, that one of Bayou, where when a character quests while here, you may draw a card and discard a card. So that's really nasty. It helps you dig through your deck looking for the stuff that you really want. It helps you just do all these really, neat things. Like, I do think that the Aladdins are interesting. Like, he was just really that afraid, I guess, of items, that he wanted to play this line of just maybe shift this character, or maybe it's just an option where he didn't really have anything else he wanted to play, but this is an option to cheat out this early 3/3 to help control the board. And like, that's a thing. So it's, yeah, I mean, why not, right? Because you can go Aladdin on 1, Blue Fairy on 2, shift the Aladdin, so you draw a card, discard a location, of course, so you play the Floodborn. Now you have a 3/3 on board. Maybe you destroyed one of their, or you quest, destroy one of their items. Like, that's a play, right? So we saw he made Top Cut really awesome. He played Blurple, which Blurple I would imagine is an extremely bad matchup for this deck because of Hades. Like, Hades ruins the fun of what Jafar is trying to do. And then they also have Elsa, so Elsa can tap these Jafars and take them out. And it just, yeah, probably a bad matchup for this deck. Not what he wanted to see, but we love to see it. When I saw that there was a Jafar wheel list, that's what I was rooting for more than anything else, right? Not rooting for Steel Song, imagine that. But I just love Jafar. Like, I've always had the Jafar since I started playing. I've always wanted to sleeve it up. I never have. But I love that idea of that combo of just popping off. I'll never forget the first time that someone we used 3 wheels in one turn on me and got to 0 to 21 in one turn. I'll never forget it, and I've been obsessed with it ever since then. But awesome list. We do see that only the 4, like the Storm Rage ons, no Strengths, no Zeuses, which is something you normally see. So he doesn't have a lot of answers for the opponent's cards. Jim Hawkins isn't really going to answer anything. The big one does for sure, but he doesn't have a lot of ways to control the board. So he kind of has to challenge into everything, but if they don't ready anything until they're ready. But then again, if they're not questing, you're not upset because you want to stall the game out until you can get to Jafar Wheel. So really neat list, really excited. Maybe I'll finally have be brave enough to sleeve up a Jafar Wheel deck. Like I said, I've always loved Jafar Wheel. So maybe one of these locals soon, I'll just surprise everyone and show up with this. But in the end, we are just so blessed because as the Lorcana community, we have this great player base, and because we have a great player base, I think it's pushing stores to support us really well. We're not like Yu-Gi-Oh getting air fryers for winnings. We are getting these crazy awesome tournaments thanks to places like CCS, thanks to places like Southside Gaming. These stores are putting on these amazing events for us, and it's only going to happen as long as we continue to support them. People like Mattify that's helping out the stores. He's not selling these mats. He's working with these places to give these amazing prizes, and people like Pavel who just put on the LCCC, and just all these people that are really trying to help out our community. And it's only because I think the player base is just great. So keep it up, guys, because as long as we keep supporting all of them, they're going to keep supporting us, and it's going to be this really healthy thing for a really healthy gaming community. And I just love to see it. So again, huge shout out to Southside Gaming for putting on this amazing event. 8 cases at free admission. Insane. But ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you've had a great, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you support Southside Gaming. Like I said, Twitch, Discord, all of their stuff is going to be down in the description. Mattified's Twitter if you want to see all of his mats that he's doing. But yeah, that's it. And I guess we'll end it with stay happy and healthy until next time.